comes from these basic things. Food comes from the field. Water comes from the river. Traveling has something to do with mountains, and wood comes from trees and all that sort of stuff. And you judge time by the sun and the moon. So everything that we have now really and truly comes from these basic things on the left. So what that means is that their language is a lot easier to develop in terms of expressing more complex ideas, because you just take the basic character that you already know and add it to something else, to combine it to make something new, to give a new idea, right? Good. That's the end of that. So we're gonna go on to the YouTube video. Any questions thus far from anybody?
Not right now.
Fantastic. That means that it was very well presented.
Chinese restaurant.
All right, good. Hope we can all see. Let's go.
I was saying, Stefan, when you're done with the video, Grace and I could probably then talk with Miss Burton, or anyone else about the tourism that are interested in tourism parks.
Okay, not a problem. Can you hear the audio?
Yeah, I started to hear you. Chelsea service. I think I know it's Chelsea service.
Did you hear the audio just now?
No, you didn't share. You share. You share.
I'll try to share it again. All right, good. You should really hear it now.
I, mountain.
Good.
Horse, car, fish, I, mountain. These glyphs may not seem familiar to you, but you've certainly met their descendants. We've all seen Chinese characters before, whether on the menu of your local Chinese restaurant or on the back of a gym enthusiast that had a spiritual awakening during their last backpacking trip in Asia. We can understand the appeal these logograms have. Chinese writings are beautifully designed and have an air of wisdom to them. But there's more to Chinese characters than aesthetics. They're a reflection of 3,000 years of cultural evolution. But when did these symbols become part of the Chinese language? And how have they evolved over the years? You're watching Explore Mode, and today we're diving into the history of Chinese characters. To the unknowing eye, Chinese characters may seem like a confusing collection of lines and boxes, but they're not just random strokes. Each character carries deep meaning. You just need to know how to interpret them. Think about Chinese characters like Lego blocks. Chinese words are built part by part. Usually, one part represents the meaning, the radical, and the other pronunciation. There are a lot of basic characters that can stand alone, like water, shui, heart, xin, and mouth, coal. Others are built from left to right, like the word for good, hao, which depicts a mother with her child, symbolizing goodness or happiness. Some are built from top to bottom, like the word for grass, cao, which has the radical for grass at the top and the word for early, zao, at the bottom, which gives it its pronunciation. And others are written from the outside in, like the word for stuffy, mun, which shows a heart within a door, symbolizing a person feeling muggy and trapped behind closed doors. The oldest form of Chinese writing dates back to 1200 BCE, in the late years of the Song dynasty. These early inscriptions are called oracle bone scripts, jiagu wen. As you might have guessed from the name, oracle bone scripts, known in Chinese as jiagu wen, were used for divination purposes. Inquirers would engrave their questions on an ox scapula or tortoise shells, which were then handed to a diviner. The diviner would heat up the bone until it cracked and interpret an answer depending on where the fissures grew. Questions at the time covered a wide range of topics, from military camping strategies to hunting expeditions and dream interpretations. These early Chinese pictograms can still be linked to modern Chinese characters. Take this oracle bone question about the weather as an example. The characters can still be easily translated and understood in modern Chinese. The similarities are even more apparent in highly pictographic characters like water, shui, fire, huo, person, ren, and tree or wood, mu. See what we're talking about? Oracle bones almost got crushed to extinction. During the 19th century, farmers dug out a number of oracle bone scripts and confused them with fossils from the Pleistocene that, at the time, were crushed and sold as Chinese medicine to treat malaria and knife wounds. The story goes that in 1899, some oracle bones were sold to Wang Yirong, the chancellor of the Imperial Academy in Beijing, who happened to be a collector of Chinese bronzes, which also bear ancient Chinese scriptures. Upon further inspection of the bones that had been sold to him, he recognized these too had ancient Chinese writings on them. After his death in the year 1900, his collection of oracle bones was passed on to his son, who sold it to a Chinese archaeologist named Liu Yi. Liu would go on to publish rubbings of several oracle bone scripts, bringing the ancient scripture to the attention of international scholars. The rest is history. Chinese scripts found on oracle bones and bronze scripts were already quite advanced and functional for their time, but the characters were often inconsistent. Spanning through the late Zhou dynasty to Qin dynasty, roughly from 221 to 106 BCE, the seal script Chinese form, or zhuanshu, was developed. It was much more uniform in size and style, while still maintaining a pictographic essence, following elongated strokes and square shapes. These characters were typically carved onto stone or jade to create imperial seals. The first imperial seal was carved onto white jade and was commissioned by the first emperor of the unified China, Qin Shi Huangdi, after he defeated the other warring states. The Qin dynasty lasted just 36 years, but it is one of the most culturally influential dynasties in Chinese history. One of Qin Shi Huang's greatest projects was the construction of the Great Wall of China. Before his reign, there were pieces of the wall built by past emperors in different regions, but it was Qin who connected large stretches of them. Other dynasties after his would follow suit, creating the large fortification system we know of today. Another of Qin's historical legacies is his tomb. In 1974, unsuspecting farmers were digging a well in Shanxi, China, when they unearthed the clay head of what seemed to be an ancient Chinese warrior. Now we know them as the Terracotta Army Warriors, a collection of 8,000 soldiers built specifically to guard Qin's tomb and protect him in his afterlife. But it wasn't just soldiers. Qin's mausoleum contains cavalry horses, acrobats, chariots, and musicians, each of which was unique in their design. These sculptures helped historians and archaeologists study the craftsmanship of this time, as well as military rankings and even the chemical components of the paint used to decorate the sculptures. Seal script was very beautiful, and it served its ornamental purpose well, but it wasn't very convenient when it came to producing official documents quickly. This is where the first modern version of Chinese characters began to develop, beginning with clerical script. Clerical script, or Li Shu, appeared around 206 BCE to 220 AD. It was a much more simplified version of the seal script, replacing curves and circles with straight lines and squares. Clerical script would later evolve into the regular Chinese script we know today, without much changes other than the simplification of strokes. But the evolution of Chinese characters didn't stop there. Time for an Express Explorer explanation. Start the clock. Nowadays, there are two versions of modern Chinese characters: traditional characters used in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau, and simplified characters used in mainland China, Singapore, and Malaysia. The simplification of Chinese characters began in 1956, when, in an effort to raise literacy rates in the country, which was at 20% of the Communist Party took over, Chinese officials began releasing and promoting documents containing simplified versions of Chinese characters. Characters were simplified by decreasing the number of strokes per character. Sometimes this meant removing parts of the character, other times it meant rewriting it into a simpler form. But the simplified versus traditional debate goes beyond education. Many traditional Chinese supporters feel that much of the meaning and artistry behind each character was stripped away during the simplification process. Take the word love, or I, as an example. At the center of the character in traditional Chinese is the character for heart. In the simplified version, the heart is taken away. A more drastic change can be seen in the Chinese word for listen, ting. The traditional version has the character for ear, heart, eyes, and a line separating the heart and eyes to symbolize undivided attention, meaning that to truly listen, one's heart, eyes, and ears have to give undivided attention to whom or what we're listening to. Now, look at the simplified version, which was completely modified from the original. The character on the left is mouth, ko, and the character on the right is jing, a unit of measurement for weight. No connection can be made between the pictogram and the actual meaning of the word. But Chinese officials weren't just looking to simplify characters. They wanted to create a romanized version of their pronunciations that would help globalize the language. So Mao Zedong tasked Zhou Youhuang, an economist turned linguist, with this mission, an offer he could not refuse, literally. Chinese characters were almost completely eliminated by Mao Zedong in mainland China, until an unlikely historical figure advised him against it. Before Mao rolled out the complete reformation of traditional characters, he was contemplating completely romanizing the Chinese language. That is, according to Zhou, until he met with Joseph Stalin in 1949. Mao shared his Chinese writing reform plans with him and asked Stalin for his advice. According to a memoir by Mao's personal secretary, Stalin told Mao, quote, "You're a great country, and you should have your own Chinese alphabet. You shouldn't simply use the Latin alphabet." It took Zhou and a team of linguists 3 years to develop the pronunciation guide we now know as Hanyu Pinyin, based on the Zhulin Fuhao, the original Chinese phonetic guide. Zhou's guide has now become the most widely used Chinese romanization system in China and around the world, successfully facilitating the dissemination of Mandarin Chinese. Nowadays, 1.117 billion people in the world speak Mandarin Chinese, and with China expanding as an economic powerhouse, there's no doubt that number will increase. Are you up for the challenge? Thanks for watching Explore Mode. If you liked this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you want to explore even more with us, check out this video we made on tarot cards and their origin.
Okay. Any questions? The video is a lot more clear than I was. Okay. Brother David, you said you wanted to deal more with the tourism side.
I didn't hear what you said. I had my my volume down.
No problem. I was asking you if you want to take over now, or do I continue?
No, you could continue if you have more. We're still within the hour, so if you have more.
All right. I prepared for an hour, so yeah.
Prepared for an hour.
Right.
Okay, so we wouldn't cut your steam.
Very well done. All right. Good. So as we had mentioned before, the characters are mostly about 60% of them or so pictographic, meaning that they look like what they mean, right? And a lot of them duplicate to mean something else, and combine to mean something else as well. Yeah, I'm just gonna. So now I have my little toy. I will share with you what. Wait, let me prepare that first before I show you the business. All right. You should be able to see before you right now a white board. All right, good. So we would have mentioned the Chinese characters, and Chinese characters are quite easy to understand once you know how to write them and how they are made up. I would use what the little children call the pretty color font, but as we're all adults here, I'm sure a simple black would do, right? Unless of course you want the pretty color font, it's just a 2 taps and I got it, right? So you have these Chinese characters here, and then you really look at them, in fact, sometimes you don't even have to really look, just have a glance and you can tell what they mean just by looking at them, even if you haven't studied any Chinese at all. For example, the number 1 looks like this. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that is only 1 stroke, right? And then funny enough, the number 2 looks like this, which is, like, again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that is 2 strokes. And so by process of pure common sense, we can guess what number 3 is. 3. strokes. Now, obviously, there's a point where you stop writing strokes because but when you get to the number 10,000, you can be in trouble, right? So it's just 1, 2, 3 that have those, that has that kind of duplication process. Now, here's where we get a little bit interactive because I teach children for a living, so I'm gonna have to feed from the energy that I get from my audience, right? All right, so we have remember we said that they were pictographic characters at first. So we're going to start with a picture. What is this? Or what does it look like?
Person?
It looks like a person. Okay, good. So once you, when I removed the head from the person, and all the children started screaming, but that was no problem. So this is, remember, this is person. So this character right here is the character for person, right? So once you have person, and bearing in mind you have the 1, 2, 3, the duplication thing going on. So you're gonna put person here, right? And then we're gonna duplicate it like how we have 1 and 2. We're gonna duplicate and have 1, 2. Now you have 2 people, right? But this obviously does not just mean 2 people. Let's say you're walking through Broad Street and there is somebody directly behind you. What is that person doing? So if this is the word for person, right? And you have two people, one behind the other. What is the person behind doing? A word beginning with F.
Following?
Following, good. So you see how simple that was.
Oh, wow.
It is the word for follow, right? And then let's duplicate it. Let's duplicate it again and have 3. So we usually say in English, what is it? 2 is company and 3 is a what?
Crowd?
3 is a crowd. So this is the Chinese word here for crowd. And we see how in just a sprinkle of common sense, you can be able to understand what the Chinese characters are representing. Now, I didn't teach you the pronunciation of these characters, but you know what they mean just by looking at them, right? And this goes for a number of Chinese characters. Take this one, for example. Wrong column. Right? This one appeared in the video more than once, but if you don't remember it, that's not a problem. This is the character for tree. When I ask my children, what is this, and they can't get it, I draw some leaves. Right? So that's the character for tree. So that's how many trees? That's 1 tree. What if I duplicate it and put this is a word beginning with W. We don't have many of these in Barbados, but you can still guess because we know the word.
Woods?
Woods, fantastic. So this is the character for woods, because of course it's more than 1 tree, right? But let us take it a step further. And we put 3 trees. We don't have any of these in Barbados for sure. But a word beginning with F.
Forest.
Forest, fantastic.
Nice.
So either you are extremely intelligent, or Chinese characters are really simple, or both. I prefer to think both. All right. And last one for the road, you have I wouldn't call this my favorite example, and bear in mind the meanings of these characters does not reflect the thoughts of the person presenting. Good. I just had to put that disclaimer.
Okay.
This is the character for a woman, right? Let me write that a little bit right here. This is the character for a woman, right? And that is 1 woman. Now, if you were to put 2 women together, what usually happens when you put 2 women together, especially on Instagram, right? If you see a video of 2 women on Instagram, what are they usually doing?
Is this positive? Is this positive or negative? Cool.
This is the Chinese character for argument.
Cool.
Because you can imagine, I see you with my man, blah, 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 right? Now, don't worry, men and get with. What happens when you have 3 women together? And no, it is not the Chinese word for bus crawl. If a man has 3 women, what is he?
A bad man.
Okay, good. Okay. So this is the word for adultery,
Whoa.
right? Because you got all these women, you're not loyal, for sure. You're not loyal. So that is how it is. And you have these let me call them now triplications of these characters, where 1 means one thing, 2 means something else, still related to the first one, and then 3 means something else, still related to the first one. So that is how they work in terms of duplication. I don't know if you're taking notes, but we have. If anything, you can still go to the Confucius Institute and they will sort you out with notes and whatnot. Okay. All right, good. If not, I don't know. Brother David will talk to you afterwards. All right. So we dealt with the characters that stand alone, the ones that we saw in the video, and some ones that I showed you just now as well. We have the characters that duplicate and triplicate, like what I told you just now as well. And there are others that combine with others. So it's not only a case where you can have 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes, or 1 tree, 2 trees, 3 trees. There are cases where you can combine a tree with something else to make something totally different. What do you mean by that? I'm glad you asked. So we have this standalone character here. But that's not what the character looks like, but that's what the character represents, right? And this is a hand, right? So we have our hands, right? And we just do a little maths here. Pardon my horrible drawing. My art teacher in primary school was horrible, right? So you have this, even though it's on a side, we know that that's an eye, right? So we have let's put the Chinese characters here at the bottom. This is the Chinese character for hand, right? And then you add that to the Chinese character for eye. And what I did with my little children is put my hand over my eye like this, and peered through my window and asked children, "So what am I doing?" And they all said, "Look." And they all said, "You're looking," right? So when you combine these 2 characters together, you get the hand over the eye. And this is the Chinese character for look, right? To look or to see. Right? So that's one example of you have 1 character combining with a totally different character to mean something else. Now, this is not these are the characters. You can't just make them up. They have already been made up. They've already been standardized. This word has always been this and will always be this until something happens to wipe out the planet, right? Okay, good. So the next example is we tell a story of this farmer. All right, we tell a story of this farmer, and the farmer is obviously a person. So we have this person here. The word for person. Some of these characters, you notice that when the character shifted a little bit in its shape to become a radical. So that changes to that. Quite similar. But we move on. This farmer he's working hard and stuff in the field, and it becomes 12 o'clock, and we know how that midday sun is. So he looks around for some shade, and he finds himself one of these things here, right? One of these things. And remember that one is mu, or tree, from last time. So he goes and he leans himself next to the tree. He leans himself on the tree, under the shade, to perform something what we know that starts with the letter R.
Rest
He's
or
resting.
relax?
Yeah.
Oh, resting.
The word for rest, sio, is literally a man leaning up on a tree, or well, a person leaning up on a tree.
Mhm.
Right? There is one more. Any questions thus far?
No questions as far. This interesting how literal it is, like the meaning.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes you want to just jump into the Confucius Institute right now and take all the classes they have.
Yeah.
Lastly, we have the first one that they think the traditional character is there. My traditional characters are really lacking. This is a traditional character here. The right. This is the character men, meaning door. Right, the character men meaning door. And then you have, I do not know what it looks like in the Oracle Bone script, but the character for horse. The character for horse. So we can imagine now, for those of us who grew up watching those Western movies, usually you tie your horse outside, right? And you get off and you walk inside ever so slowly and gracefully. Or if he's a bad man, you just kick open the door, right? And everybody freezes and look around. We understand. We watch Western movies. What if you did not take the time to get off your horse and you just run the horse straight through the door, right? You clearly have some kind of urgent message to deliver, right? So
Mhm.
we have the door here and we have the horse in the middle like that. So as though the horse is pushing to go through the door. And this is chuang, which means to rush. To rush.
Okay.
And this is the word, not just rush as in, oh my goodness, I'm late, but to rush through something. So if they're expressing that you ran a red light, they use this word.
Okay, understandable.
Yeah, good. So because you're not really supposed to ride a horse through a saloon door. You're not really supposed to drive your car through a red light. So it is the same. It is the same idea that they're trying to express here. You have rushed through something. You have forced yourself through something, not necessarily what you were supposed to do. Right. So those are the three examples. I try to give three examples of each to show that I'm not just making this up. Kidding. But next, you have. This would have been mentioned in the video as well. I see you're looking away, so I'm assuming you're writing this down. I'll just roll at the top. And if anything,
I have the bottom one already. So
okay.
yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think this will be available on YouTube when this is over. So
Okay.
I think so. I'm not entirely sure. Then there are words that combine meanings with sound. There are characters that combine meaning with sound, right? We know, for example, this word here, which is tree. Okay, good. Trees are good for many things, but when it comes to human civilization, trees are good for wood, right? But when I add that, there's another word here called ji, right? Ji. But once I take that and add it to this, you get the pronunciation, not necessarily the same tone. You get the pronunciation ji, but there's a meaning attached to it. This meaning has something to do with wood. Now, the meaning of this word, ji, let me erase that. The meaning of this word, ji, is machine. But when we 21st century people think of the word machine, we think of electronics and robotics and androids and the Transformers and Autobots and whatnot. We think of those things. But 3,000 years ago, when there were no Autobots, these things were made of wood. So we're gonna have to take our minds back to those to those times to see that, okay, good, this is made of wood. This is tea, meaning machine. Let us now combine that word tea with another word that we would have learned earlier. The word for hand. So you have the word for hand, right? Let me make some more space here. You have the word for hand, and you have the word for machine. And then you get a word that means a machine that you always have in your hand. We know what machine that is. We have it every day. You roll over, you check it, and then you check it, and then you go back to sleep. You have it in your pocket all the time, and as soon as it vibrates, you pick it up. And sometimes you feel it vibrating, but it has not.
And it didn't. Exactly.
You get bored, you just pick it up to look at it. You know nothing came through. You just pick it up and look at it. Every time you look, you have this in your hand. It is a hand machine.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So that's where you get the words, this word here from. That word is shouti. Shouti. And a lot of the characters take what it is and literally hit you with it. And it makes it so very easy to understand. So if I take out the word hand and I put the word to fly, so now you have a flying machine.
Flying.
I would like to be on one right now. You can guess what that is. Airplane, right?
Yeah.
Is a flying machine, right? And then you I think I would have written that wrong, No, I haven't. Yeah. This is to hit. This one here is to hit, and this one here is print or to impress, to press on something. So you have something that hits and impresses upon something, a dainty. You get the word printer, right? So these are all. So as then you see, you have a whole category of characters with this, a whole category of words with this character in it. T meaning machine, because we have a whole bunch of machines now, and so what the Chinese would have done is just taken the concept of machine, and every machine that comes out, they just describe what it is and add the word machine. Quite simple. So whereas in English, where we have a electrocardiogram, right, and it gives English speakers licks. It gives English speakers licks. They took the word for heart, electricity, and picture, put them together, because that's what it is, a picture of the electricity that your heart is producing. And you got us here now with electrocardiogram and biting holes in our tongue and whatnot. They just have 3 syllables for it, right? It makes us want to learn Chinese all the more. 2 more examples of this. Like we said, things come from pictures at first. So we have my drawing is going to be horrible. So I'm just gonna, because this is being recorded, I'm just gonna write the character here. I think it has something to do with wow, that's the worst cloud ever. It's supposed to look like a cloud, right? I don't know how they got that from that, but they got it. And then you have the things that those clouds produce, which I'll write the character for it here. And I love dealing with children because their imagination never ceases. I say, okay, children, what is this? What does this look like? Look around in your house and tell me what this looks like. And they say, okay, a window. All right, I say, good. So what are these little dots on the window? And they say, oh, it's raining. Good, it is raining. So now we have the character for rain, right? You have the character for rain. If you have the character for rain, and then there is this thing coming down while the rain is coming down as well, we know that to be lightning, right? We know that to be lightning. So you have the rain, you have something that probably looks like a cloud a little bit, and then the lightning coming out from the cloud while it is raining. A combination of all that, you get the word for electricity. Of course, that has been simplified to just the part at the bottom, right? Just the part at the bottom. And that word is the word for electricity, right? We only have 10 more minutes. Oh, there. All right, just this. I'm going to cut that one example and then we'll move on.
Okay.
Oh, dear. I soon may have to go anyway. So you have this, which is electricity, and then you add that to the word for speech, right? 1, 2, 3. And you have electric speech, something that we have in our house all the time, right? Telephone, right?
Wow.
Any questions thus far? I think I hear horn blowing outside my house. Any questions thus far?
No questions, just it's really interesting because you look at Chinese characters and it looks so confusing. Like, how am I supposed to know what this is saying?
Right.
But it's actually, it seems to be simpler once you really get into it and understand.
Fantastic. Hopefully 1 minute, yes?
Okay.